Twitch presents our next big thing. Something long promised, but never delivered. Getting paid for using Twitter. For how many long years have you toiled for free on this God-forsaken site? What a mess. What a shame. What could have been. But now Twitch is here to save the day yet again. You'll finally be getting paid for all your hard work.
Another thing that concerns me is the balkanization of education. We've taken pieces of what we would call science, and we've balkanized it. We've separated it into many different pieces. Science and math in our current curriculum are two different classes. And I believe that we shouldn't do that. I believe that math can be taught while we're doing science, and science can be taught while we're doing math. In addition, we have the language arts, and it seems as though we're not treating, kids are going to English class. They call it language arts, but are they really learning the art of language? Are they really learning how to communicate? Or are they just learning how to follow rules? This is why I'm so glad Hotep Nation is involved in the homeschooling community, because I really think we can make a big difference in education and changing people's minds and how they receive and take in information. Also, what about the environment in which somebody's educated in? I mean, we look at this environment, this beautiful environment. Why aren't more classes being taught here? If I had a school, class would be here every day. We'd take the walk, we'd come down the path, we'd identify some of the plant life, and we'd come and we'd sit down here. We'd even have class while we're swimming. And I think that you'd find that kids would learn more, they would learn better, learn faster. They'd be more eager to come to school as well. And you'd probably get higher education out of individuals. The balkanization of education is a huge problem.
What's up, people? Hotep Jesus. We back.
That Hotep Jesus dude.
Thank you for tuning in to another news update here. A little afternoon news update. We're trying to settle the next Zoom soon. We're going to try, maybe next week, we're going to try and get that in. But it's super busy, but we're going to try and get that Zoom call in. Shout out to all of our VIPs. On patreon.com/HotepBeenToldYou, where we do Hotep's Been Told You 2.0, our second show every Monday for our VIP subscribers. So make sure you go tune in there, check us out on that platform. Shout out to Syscoin, the channel sponsor of the month. All of my blockchain developers, check out Syscoin. Maybe it's something you might be interested in. You can build some awesome technology on that beautiful infrastructure of the Syscoin people. Great company. If you're a speculator, you want to try and get into something on the bear market, maybe Syscoin is something you want to look into, but this is not financial advice. Shout out to the Syscoin people. Shout out to Men of Order, our official sponsor for all things men and masculinity. Go to menoforder.com, read up, and have your 20-year-old son, 30-year-old son, nephew, whatever it is, have them glue into the content there. We're leading men in the right direction. Shout out to Twitch. That's the commercial you saw before the stream today. Twitch is the official sponsor of HotepCon. So shout out to the Twitch and Twitch app. It's basically Twitter, except you get paid. Very interesting. The more engagement you get, the more money you make, and it's instantaneous. It's actually pretty cool. Matter of fact, let me give you guys a little run through. I was just looking at something earlier, and so I don't even know if I'm supposed to be showing you this. It might be proprietary information here, so if I get hacked, whatever. But anyway, let's take a look at it. So here's like the transactions that have been coming in. So every time somebody interacts with me, well, I get pieces of a Bitcoin, some Satoshis pop into my account here. You can see that. See, that's pretty cool. So shout out to Twitch. We'll be communicating over Twitch during HotepCon. HotepCon is our official event for all Hoteps and our extended family, Hotep adjacents, etc., etc. Just come hang out with us August 11th to the 13th in Las Vegas, Nevada at the Ahern Hotel. It's really beautiful, really quiet, really intimate, lovely environment. So I hope to see you there. Without further ado, let's dive into today's presentation. We got Jill Biden. Horrible. Just you know what Jill basically did? I'm gonna tell you what Jill basically did. Jill proved that she's a racist limousine liberal. That's what she did. That's what she did. I mean, these people are so detached from the streets, from the people that they claim that they represent, the people who they claim to have the best interests at heart. How can you claim to have a group of people's best interests at heart and you know nothing about them? You know nothing about them. You don't know what could be offensive to these people. You don't know how to pronounce the word bodega. Let's dive into this article here and we'll sort through this. So it says, this is Reuters. Jill chided for saying Latinos as unique as breakfast tacos. I mean, who says that? You can't even find that on like a Proud Boys channel. What's the other one? Patriot Front. People at Patriot Front don't even talk like this. Anyway, it says U.S. First Lady Jill Biden's attempt to compliment Latinos flopped on Monday when she said they were as unique as breakfast tacos, prompting criticism from across the political spectrum. Really? Was it really across the political spectrum? I can't say for certain. However, I do question that claim. Speaking in San Antonio at the annual conference of Unidos US, formerly known as the National Council of La Raza, Biden attempted to praise Raul Zaguer, who led the civil rights and advocacy organization for 30 years. Raul helped build this organization with the understanding that the diversity of this community, as distinct as the bodegas of the Bronx, as beautiful as the blossoms of Miami, and as unique as the breakfast tacos here in San Antonio, is your strength. So she didn't actually say bodegas. She said bodegas or something like that. And really, did they? Okay, here it is. It says in New York City, people love the convenience stores known as bodegas that are often run by Dominican or Puerto Rican merchants. Biden mispronounced the word as bodegas. She didn't mispronounce the word. She doesn't know the word. The word's not in her vocabulary. She's probably never even heard of a bodega. And really, there's two things wrong here, or maybe one. I don't know. Here's what's happening. So obviously, like, one of AOC's flunkies tried to write this for her to make her seem relatable to these people. However, they failed to prep her on exactly the word bodega and any other references in this thing that may seem out of touch or insensitive. So there was failure to have any follow through. So either this person didn't have any follow through because, well, he or she naively believed that Joe Biden knew what a bodega was, or they're trolling and knew she was going to gaffe, which would be absolutely hilarious. But yeah, so some sort of situation had to come like that, right? Where they were like, didn't have time to prep her. I don't know, but she should have been prepped, so she didn't sound like an idiot. However, there's also the potential, showing Biden's health. We're talking about Joe Biden's health. Well, if she's following in the footsteps of Joe Biden's health, well, guess what? Maybe they did prep her, and maybe she just ultimately failed at following her prep. Continues, it says Miami has, which would be hilarious, by the way. Miami has long been a destination for Latinos who migrate to the United States. San Antonio is also one of the great Latino cities in the United States, with a population of nearly 1.5 million people. That is 65% Hispanic or Latino, according to the U.S. Census data. The largely Mexican-American city is fond of its breakfast tacos, part of the local cuisine. So obviously Reuters is throwing some bail here. The National Association of Hispanic Journalists is not impressed, saying Biden and her speechwriters ought to better understand the complexities of our people. So here they are also calling out her speechwriters. Yes, we are not tacos. Our heritage as Latinos is shaped by a variety of diasporas, cultures, and food traditions, and should not be reduced to a stereotype, the association said in a statement. Conservatives on social media jumped on the gaffe, wondering what the liberal outrage would sound like if a prominent Republican had said it. No wonder Hispanics are fleeing the Democratic Party. U.S. Representative Andy Biggs, a Republican of Arizona, wrote on Twitter. Good point. Good point. There absolutely would be a disastrous double standard. First Lady Joe Biden is receiving flack from the right for comments in which she said the Hispanic community was as unique as the breakfast tacos in San Antonio. Now, this is The Hill. You're reading from The Hill now. Biden was speaking at the 2020 Unidos, while referring to Unidos, she commented on the diversity of the community, But what The Hill fails to do is they fail to point out her mispronunciation of the word bodegas. They gloss over that fact, and only Reuters had covered it, at least in today's presentation. I'm sure others have covered it as well. And we'll take a look at what CNN wrote too. It says Republicans were quick to blast her comments, arguing they show why Democrats are going to lose Hispanic voters. And that's pretty hilarious. They are already losing Hispanic voters in droves. Many of these people coming from communist nations, they know what communism looks like. So when you start practicing communism, these people are going to flee. Avoid. Okay, so let's go to CNN. Let's see how CNN covered this story. So this is Jill apologizes after citing bodegas and breakfast tacos to praise Hispanic diversity. First Lady Joe Biden's office issued an apology Tuesday morning. So it says here, the First Lady spokesman, Michael La Rosa, says the First Lady apologizes that her words conveyed anything but pure admiration and love for the Latino community. So there is no actual statement, right? So it says here, Jill Biden apologizes, right? But Jill Biden hasn't actually apologized, according to CNN. Jill Biden's office issued an apology. It says right here, Jill Biden's office issued an apology Tuesday morning. We have Michael La Rosa issuing an apology on behalf of the First Lady. But we do not have the First Lady herself actually apologizing for those comments. So I would like to just go ahead and fact check the fact checkers there. Okay. In a statement Monday, the National Association of Hispanic Journalists called on the First Lady and her speech writing team to take the time in the future to better understand the complexities of our people and communities. We are not tacos. Do not reduce us to stereotypes. So yeah. So obviously this is CNN running cover, right? They've pulled. I mean, CNN basically takes the role of her PR team. That's what they do. And let's look at the evidence of how they just roll out some cover here for her. It says CNN has reached out to the First Lady's office for comment. CNN's Nicole Chavez, who was in the room for the First Lady's speech, reports that Biden's comments, which chided examples of pieces of Latino life, were met with cheers in the packed conference room. Now, if you watched our secret episode last night, Uncle Hotep pointed out the fact that he heard booing in that room. CNN reports that they heard cheers in the room. In her speech, Biden also discussed the bipartisan gun legislation signed by the president after the tragedy of Uvalde, Texas. So this is obviously inserted in here, maybe for some SEO purposes, some internal links, distraction, who knows, but it has nothing to do with her comments. Moments before Biden's remarks, Unidos President CEO Janet Margua applauded her for appointing Latinos to top jobs in her staff and talked about a recent meeting at the White House to talk about the community. So again, providing more evidence to make Jill seem fit to favor Jill. We covered a lot of substantive ground that day, but I also felt like I made a friend in that visit, Margua, as said as she introduced Biden. So this is basically her taking the stand and saying, "Oh, Jill Biden's an okay woman." So the CNN has dug this up. Biden also spoke about the diversity within the Latino community, but also their common desires. Just the Latino community is unique. What I've heard from you again and again is that you want what all families want: good schools, good jobs, safe neighborhoods, Biden said. She also touted her husband's efforts to increase Latino representation within the government. So here, they're even trying to throw Joe some bail. But, while we're here, let's just see if they have anything on Hunter's little episode. Let's see if they've covered this yet. I know they were late. Oh, no, still no Hunter reports. That's okay. CNN sometimes is late, so I'm sure they'll be all over that. Ladies and gentlemen, before we talk about inflation, which is our second topic of the evening, let's first just recap what we have learned. What we have learned is that these people are fake. They do nothing themselves. The few things that they do themselves seems to be criminal activity. It seems to be nefarious acts. It seems to be debauched culture, as we saw with Hunter Biden and those leaks. These people don't write their own speeches, and they don't even write their own apologies after they fail at these speeches. So what you're dealing with is fraud. You're dealing with fraudulence. You're dealing with falsity. You're dealing with deception. That's the word I'm looking for. Deception. These people are Decepticons. And that's a diss to Decepticons for even comparing these people to Decepticons. Decepticons aren't even as bad as these people. Anyway, so that's the first thing you have to understand. These people are absolutely fake. Next thing you have to understand is these people are in a whole nother category of rich, a whole nother category of wealth. We know that with them entering the White House, the Bidens, their net worth has significantly expanded, et cetera, but these people, and I'm going to bring up something that Walter Williams made a point of. Walter Williams said it seems like the people furthest from the problem want to be in charge of its solution. The people furthest from the problem are most in charge of the solution. The people furthest from these communities, these Latino communities, which you don't even know what a bodega is. These people furthest from these communities want to have the most to say, which is ironic in itself. So yeah, these people, so you have to ask yourself, okay, so if they're far from the problem, why are they here? Why are they involved in the problem? Well, they want to exploit those problems. That's what they're here to do. They're supposed to exploit those problems for their own profits and gains, and show up at the polls, midterms, primaries, all this stuff is happening. Well, midterms are coming up, right? So they have a lot riding on those seats of power, and with that power comes a lot of wealth and money, as we see with some of the stock market plays these people are making. So we've covered that Jill is fake and fraudulent, and she's also a limousine liberal. And so what is a limousine liberal? Well, when we look at how some of these, let's look at the Russian Revolution, right? When we look at how some of these people lived, how Trotsky lived, how Lenin lived, they lived wealthy. Karl Marx lived wealthy. They lived off of capitalism. They did well for themselves. They ate some of the finest foods. These people were, in fact, closely attached to the upper class, if not middle to upper class themselves. Okay? And you'll find that within the intelligentsia of socialism and communism, you are dealing with middle to upper middle class to upper class people. And they virtue signal and attach themselves to these problems. And this alleviates some of the guilt that they have from all of the wealth that they've accumulated for exploiting the problems of the lower class, the working class. It is so terrible. It is so terrible that when they hire these people to write these speeches for them, they don't even hire somebody close enough. They hire a Latino, but the Latino is so detached from his own community because he is also middle to upper middle class that he doesn't even understand what Jill may or may not understand about the word bodega. It's not only hiring people, not only they detached, but they're hiring people that are detached. Liberals take care of liberals. Liberals do not take care of conservatives. You have to understand that. Conservatives have no place in the workplace. Remember that. Conservatives have no place in the workplace, and that's why they tell you don't discuss politics in the workplace. No, you can discuss politics in the workplace as long as you're liberal. As long as you're liberal. But we're gonna go on to inflation now. We've pretty much exhausted Joe Biden. To recap, top three things: she's fake and fraudulent, completely detached from the people she wishes to help, and she's a limousine liberal. Way too much money to even care about the problems of the working class. And I pray that people detach themselves from voting for the Democratic Party. Let's move on to inflation. Let's talk about inflation and see what the media is saying. The media. Okay, so it says here, inflation terror at the Fed. At the Fed. I wish they did fled. I wish they have fled. Fleed. Okay, inflation terror at the Fed by Paul A. London. Very important. This is an opinion piece. And it's not a bad opinion piece at all either. Let me make sure you guys can see this. Okay, so it says here, he begins and he says, FDR, President FDR, said at his first inauguration in March 1933. 1933. Wow. Anybody who knows anything about gold knows that 1933 is a very special year. That the only thing we have to fear is fear itself, unreasoning, unjustified terror. FDR was speaking at the depths of the Great Depression, but what he said is relevant in 2022, when a recession is not yet a sure thing. So here's this spin by the media right now where they're acting like a recession isn't coming, isn't looming, isn't happening. We're not in one now. And so who knows, right? So let's continue. It says today's unreasoning terror, and I'll get to super chats after this, is that inflation will surge out of control when the thing to fear is that raising interest rates could lead to a dangerous downturn. So we covered this on the channel before. I think it's chapter 16, Thomas Sowell's book of Basic Economics. He talks about raising interest rates is not what you want to do when you're heading into a recession, having a poor market. So it says Fed Chairman Jerome Powell said recently that inflation is a greater danger than recession, and other Fed officials agree with him. Now, this writer says this is ominous because inflation has hurt Americans as much as a dozen recessions since the founding of the country. It says this is ominous because inflation has never hurt Americans as much as a dozen recessions since the founding of the country, when prices fell instead of going up and farmers and workers suffered acutely. And we saw farmers and workers overseas rebelling against their governments. The governments are looking to shrink the size of those markets via Green New Deal type stuff, climate change and bad fertilizers and just basically just poor technology. Unfortunately, even Democrats like Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen share Powell's view. She rushed to confess a few weeks ago that inflation in mid-2020 is worse than she thought it would be, and that she was wrong to think it would ease quickly. Really? Really, Janet? Really? You didn't know this? You didn't know this? Why are you sitting in that position? Why do you have that job if you didn't know this? This is what you get paid to do. You thought you were just going to ease it quickly? Who believes that? Nothing economically happens quickly until y'all start messing with it. Then things start happening and crashing quickly. What are you talking about, Janet? You knew this was going to happen. Everybody with basic knowledge of Thomas Sowell knew this was going to happen. Every libertarian knew this was going to happen when you practiced what you practiced. This contracting and retracting, right? Imagine the market is like a lung, right? And someone comes along and sticks a tube down your throat into your lung, and they start inflating and deflating your lung without your help. You know what happens? There's machines that actually do this. They breathe for you. Your body decides to stop functioning. The lungs decide to stop functioning. The brain goes, all right, somebody else is going to perform this duty. Go ahead. You get chaos. And that's what people do to the markets. They inflate them, they deflate them, and they do it. It convulses because they do it rapidly. For example, when you inflate the currency right after you just shut down the economy, those two things like contradict each other. So this is the convulsion that they've added to the market. After you see a convulsion like this, you would have to expect that something bad is going to happen for the market. So how she decides that, it says here, she rushed to confess a few weeks ago that inflation in mid-2020 is worse than she thought it would be, and that she was wrong to think that it would ease quickly. She obviously was wrong to expect a quick end to rising prices. But in the Democrats' defense, every administration makes rosy predictions. Yeah, everybody sells you beautiful dreams. When they're a politician, everything's going to be great. You know, when they take that stage, and then they actually get the job, and they're just no Trump. Anyway, the more important mistake is to cheer for those who think raising interest rates is a good idea, and to respond timidly to the Fed's willingness to risk a recession to blunt this episode of inflation. So he's basically saying is the people that are cheering for raising interest rates are quite frankly wrong. So he's basically saying, he says, and to respond timidly to the Fed's willingness to risk a recession to blunt this episode of inflation. So basically what they're trying to say is they're trying to fight inflation, but at the same time, fight recession. So they're fighting on two different fronts. You know, what they should do here, I don't know. My best guess is don't touch anything. You know, I say Economics 101, you got to read Thomas Sowell, and Economics 201 is a very short book. It has one sentence in it, and it basically says, don't touch anything. Don't touch anything. Anyway, Democrats like Yellen should untie themselves from the Fed and the crowd pushing higher interest rates. Correct. This guy knows what he's talking about. Democrats have been right to target spending toward long-term investment in alternatives to fossil fuels. Now that I don't know if I would agree with that. I'd have to do more research. What he's basically saying is cut spending on fossil fuels, and I don't know about that. They're right to be fighting inflation by attacking bottlenecks at ports and transport hubs, and right to add new capacity to produce advanced computer chips and similar high-tech supplies. Wow, you just now decided to work on computer chips to create or produce advanced computer chips? You're just now thinking about this? Wow. Indeed, some of the price increases associated with these bottlenecks are fading already, like ocean shipping rates, lumber prices, and inventory shortages at Walmart, Target, and other outlets. Unfortunately, high interest rates will do little to bring. All right, before I read this next sentence, let's just unpack this piece right here. So it's basically saying, so it says here, right? It says some of the price increases associated with these bottlenecks are fading. Are they fading? Are they fading, or are they coming back to homeostasis? Are they coming back or trying to find normality or trying to find an equilibrium? Because when you completely destroy logistics by shutting down economies during your beer bug crisis, what did you expect to happen? So they what they like to do is they like to pretend as if they're doing something correct by trying to fix the problem that they created. It's like you destroyed this industry and now you're going to try and put some money into it, inject some life into it to bring it back. It's just like, what? Like, no, you don't get credit for cleaning up the milk that you spilled. You're supposed to clean up the milk that you spilled, stupid. Anyway, it says, unfortunately, high interest rates will do little to bring the worldwide surge in energy prices down. And Russian President Vladimir Putin would love to see the Fed cause a recession. So here they are, ejecting Putin. Like, what the heck does he have to, like, who cares what Putin feels about? I mean, of course, he'd love to see a recession. Of course, his economy is, I believe they're experiencing deflation for like the first time in like 20 years or something like that. It's just, Russia's doing great and we're not. Anyway, so it says Democrats also should be explaining more clearly to the public how they, the previous administration and Congress, took successful action to ease the pain of COVID-19 recession. Both administrations and the Congress were right to spend over $5 trillion of government money to replace the lost incomes of 20 million Americans put out of work by COVID-19 when large parts of the economy were shut down. $5 trillion. So, this $5 trillion never had to be spent. They didn't have to shut down the country. This $5 trillion didn't have to be spent. But you shut down the country, then you injected $5 trillion into it. And it's just like, the $5 trillion wasn't injected properly. It was just haphazard, willy-nilly. This is $5 trillion willy-nilly. $5 trillion willy-nilly. $5 trillion willy-nilly. That's what this is. When you want to talk about this government spending right here, just call it the $5 trillion willy-nilly. Hotep Jesus made that up. Just now, y'all seen it. Hashtag $5 trillion willy-nilly. They just throw money around. They don't know exactly where that money's. Actually, let me not get into the Ozark situation of things. But that's what this is. $5 trillion willy-nilly. Now it says here, 20 million Americans are put out of work. 20 million Americans. So you're gonna try and put money to that problem? Is that what you're gonna try and do? No, don't touch anything. Just stop. Have a seat. You're on timeout. That's what I would do. If I was in Congress, I'd be like, yo, everybody, you on timeout. Everybody go home, sit down, and think about what you did wrong. And everybody's getting their pay cut, 50%, half, 75%. Right? No new taxes. Anyway, it says, a hugely interesting question that economists should be asking: what would happen after the crash of 1929 if President Hoover had spent government money to support incomes and investment the way the government did from 2020 to 2022? My view is that the world would have avoided the Great Depression if Hoover had acted so boldly. Okay, potentially. However, I think that if they did another $5 trillion willy-nilly, we would have seen other ramifications in the market, and things still would have gone awry. Also, you got to remember, the Great Depression was invoked because of deflation. So he would have had to have gone against the Fed at that time period, because the Fed was definitely contracting the money supply. Okay, they were practicing deflation. So it would have gone against what the Fed was practicing, which is basically the cause of the Great Depression. If you read my book, The Patriot Report, you would know about this. Anyway, it says, it is worthwhile to see how President Trump temporarily made Republicans recognize the central role that government has to play when the economy is in trouble. For all the viciousness and deliberate divisiveness of the politics, when it came to COVID-19 recession, he thought like a developer, a borrower, a newcomer. So this guy actually gives Trump some props. which I was actually surprised to see. It says here in the 1970s, the last time the oil cartel had the power to raise prices, Americans adjusted, and cars, homes, and industries became far more efficient. Interest rates of 6, 7, or 8% rather than 2 or 3% will make it more expensive to adjust to the climate change and less globalized post-Ukraine world. The risk is not inflation. The risk is what will happen if Americans can't afford to borrow to help the economy adapt. There will be less demand for carpenters, plumbers, electricians, factory workers, shipping services, drivers, and warehouse personnel. Wages will stagnate and inequality will worsen. And I do agree with that. This is the biggest risk, that people will not be able to borrow money, but money will not be cheap. They're trying to make money expensive, and that's with the reaction of the Fed to the market, which is to raise interest rates. Just not a good idea. Anyway, Shiva Varini said Joe Inflation is the second biggest chump breathing. Second, because Woman has to be the first. Appreciate you. Cannon Hotep, thank you, bro. He says, salute. If Jill handles Joe, then who handles Jill? Whoa. Exactly. Jabari Judy said Joe Biden had a real life Eric Cartman moment. Jimmy Das Hotep, salute Hotep Jesus. Thank you, sir.
That Hotep Jesus do.
Last name first. Quantitative easing. Yes, exactly. Holly movie star. My cannonball word for pool is now Balgara. Reaction PR. He says using inflation to pay government debt with cheaper money. Uh-oh. He gets it. AG, what up, bro? He said, Hotep, appreciate you, bro. Reaction PR, they should stop printing, cut spending, and taxes. Indeed, but Ukraine needs help, so it is what it is. Thank you for joining in for your news update today. I will see you tomorrow night with myself and Crypto Wendy O for our Love and Crypto podcast. You be well, Hotep and Bill.
Twitch presents our next big thing. Something long promised, but never delivered. Getting paid for using Twitter. For how many long years have you toiled for free on this God-forsaken site? What a mess. What a shame. What could have been. But now Twitch is here to save the day yet again. You'll finally be getting paid for all your hard work